There are stories that explode overnight, and then there are stories that unfold slowly, layer by layer, until the truth feels heavier than anyone expected. This is one of those stories. In the next few minutes, we will walk through details shared by people close to the Reiner family. These are not details meant for headlines, but quiet truths that change how everything before this moment is now understood. But before you can understand what was said, you need to understand why it matters. What happened to Rob Reiner and Michelle Stinger Reiner on December 14th did not begin that day. It did not begin inside a house in Brentwood, and it did not begin with flashing lights or breaking news alerts. It began quietly, years earlier, inside a family that believed love, effort, and sacrifice would be enough. Rob Reiner was not just a legendary filmmaker. To his family, he was a father who carried years of guilt, fear, and hope all at once. Michelle Singer Reiner was not just his wife. She was a mother who never stopped believing her child could find stability. Together, they lived inside a cycle many families know too well, one defined by struggle, recovery, disappointment, and renewed faith. Nick Reiner grew up surrounded by fame, creativity, and enormous expectations. As the son of Rob Reiner and the grandson of Carl Reiner, he was raised in a world where success looked inevitable from the outside. But according to people close to the family, Nick never felt that world truly belonged to him. A source close to the Reiners has now spoken about what life inside the family really looked like. Not the red carpets or premieres, but the private moments where fear, frustration, and hope collided. That source describes Nick as entitled, not in the casual way the word is often used online, but in a deeper, more painful sense. According to them, Nick wanted a version of success, love, and belonging that did not require process, patience, or compromise. This is not presented as judgment. It is an observation from someone who watched the family struggle from close range. Nick has openly spoken about his past addiction issues, which began in his teenage years. Over time, he entered rehabilitation programs more than 18 times. He experienced periods of homelessness and drifted in and out of stability. Through all of it, Rob and Michelle remained present. Those close to them say they tried everything. They gave him space. They kept him close. They sought expert advice. They set boundaries. They broke boundaries. They tried again. And through it all, they carried guilt. According to the source, Rob and Michelle felt enormous guilt for years because they could not help Nick get his life together. That guilt shaped every decision they made. It influenced how they spoke to him, how they supported him, and how much responsibility they placed on themselves. From the outside, it looked like privilege. Inside the family, it felt like desperation. One of the most revealing chapters came in 2015, when Rob directed the film Being Charlie, co-written by Nick. The film was loosely inspired by Nick's real-life struggles with addiction. At the time, it was framed as a creative collaboration and a healing process, a way for Nick to build confidence and an identity beyond his last name. According to the source, Rob and Michelle truly believed it could give Nick purpose and legitimacy of his own. But identity had always been the central struggle. In a 2016 podcast interview, Nick admitted that growing up with a famous father and grandfather left him feeling empty. He said he had no identity of his own. That fame defined him before he ever had the chance to define himself. So he tried to build identity through rebellion, anger, self-destruction, and by becoming the opposite of what people expected. He said he wanted to carve out his own identity, even if it was painful. Rob Reiner heard those words. He did not dismiss them. In interviews, Rob spoke openly about feeling desperate during those years. He admitted that tough love never felt natural to him, but like many parents in similar situations, he followed advice he believed might save his child. Sources describe the family as they did things together. There was no emotional abandonment, but there was instability, especially when it came to Nick. One insider said they could never reach a lasting sense of stability with him. No matter what they tried, something always pulled the family back into crisis. Still, there was never fear of violence. Another source close to the family says Nick had a history of being self-destructive, but not violent. That distinction matters. If anyone had believed Nick posed a danger to his parents, the situation would have been handled very differently. No one saw this coming. As recently as September 2025, Rob Reiner publicly stated that Nick was doing well. He said his son had been sober for over 6 years and was in a good place. Those words now echo painfully. Just weeks before the tragedy, Nick appeared with his family at the premiere of Spinal Tap 2. Photographs from that night show a family that looked united and hopeful. But behind closed doors, the pressure had never fully disappeared. According to sources, Nick wanted to be loved the way the rest of the family was loved, without feeling he had to put in work that he believed others did not have to do. This created quiet resentment, not explosive arguments, but tension that lingered beneath the surface. Then, on December 14th, everything collapsed. Rob Reiner and Michelle Singer Reiner were found dead inside their Los Angeles home. Their daughter Romy discovered their bodies and called for help. Later that night, Nick Reiner was arrested. He has since been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. These are allegations, and the legal process is ongoing. In the days that followed, the family released a statement describing the loss as horrific and devastating. Jake and Romy Reiner said their parents were not just their parents, but their best friends. They asked for privacy, compassion, and restraint. Quietly, someone close to the family spoke, not to assign blame and not to rewrite history, but to explain the emotional landscape that existed long before tragedy struck. To understand what they meant by entitlement, you have to strip the word of its internet meaning. This was not about money or celebrity access. According to those who knew the family, it was about expectations that grew silently over years. Expectations that were never spoken aloud but shaped every interaction. Nick wanted unconditional love without feeling he needed to earn stability in the same way others did. Inside the family, this created an imbalance, not favoritism, but tension. A feeling that love had become something to negotiate rather than something that flowed freely. Rob and Michelle did not pull away. They leaned in harder than most parents would. Their guilt never truly lifted. They questioned themselves constantly. When treatment failed, they blamed themselves. When Nick resisted, they feared pushing him too hard would push him away forever. Decisions were made carefully, sometimes hesitantly. Boundaries existed, but they were revisited. Consequences were set, but sometimes softened. Not because Rob and Michelle were weak, but because they were afraid. Nick's addiction history was long and complex. By age 22, he had been in rehab more than 18 times. He experienced homelessness and spoke openly about sleeping on the streets. These experiences shaped his identity deeply and deepened his parents' sense of responsibility. As the years passed and Nick appeared more stable, the constant emergencies faded into cautious hope. In the years leading up to the tragedy, Nick was present. He was working. He appeared clean. He attended family events. For Rob and Michelle, this felt like progress. Proof that the struggle had not been in vain. But according to sources, the internal tension never disappeared. It changed shape. Nick still struggled with identity. The pressure of his family legacy never left him. One insider says he wanted a life that matched the success around him without fully accepting the process required to build it independently. That disconnect created quiet frustration, not rage, but dissatisfaction that lingered. Rob and Michelle wanted normalcy. They wanted peace. They wanted a future not defined by recovery schedules and crisis calls. In trying to protect that peace, difficult conversations were sometimes avoided. This was not negligence. It was fear disguised as calm. Even in the days before the tragedy, no one believed violence was part of the picture. Nick appeared at social events. He followed routine. He was not seen as a threat. Then came the night that now feels impossible to reconcile with everything before it. But Rob and Michelle were found dead in their home. Nick was arrested and charged. The family asked for compassion and restraint. This story is not about a single moment or a single decision. It is about years of unresolved pressure, love weighed down by guilt, and expectations that never aligned. Rob and Michelle tried everything. They loved deeply. They hoped constantly. And like many parents facing long-term struggles, they did not believe violence was part of their reality. As the legal process continues, answers will come through evidence and time. But some questions will never have simple resolutions. How much love is too much? When does protection become avoidance? When does peace hide danger? This is not a story that ends with